Hello anyone and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney, where we are about to start Case 4. Let's see how this goes. We ended on a real winning point with Case 3, so yeah, interested to see where things will go from here.
I begin to think, Wilson, said Sholmes, turning his head languidly in my direction, that there is more to this case than that which we have observed. Indeed, that there may be another part to this story that we are yet to discover. His eyes wandered, following the steam rising from his cup of herbal tea, leading him to the distant memory of that snowy evening. To the young lady collapsed on the pavement along Briar Road, and to the knife in her back. Lit in the soft glow of gas lamps, a most extraordinary scene had been set. And under the cover of a light fog, the curtain had risen silently on the insoluble mystery of our invisible killer.
These weird Sholmes stories are so bizarre to me. I like them, but... So I presume we're about to be made a lawyer? Did you sleep last night, Mr. Naruhodo? No, not at all. It was an enormous hotel, wasn't it? The rooms were so luxurious, I felt like we were staying in a palace. And with all the gaslights twinkling, it was brighter than day even in the middle of the night. What about the enormous beds? After my time on the SS Barrier, I wasn't going to waste a single inch of that space. I spent the entire night rolling from one side of the mattress to the other. Oh yes, it really was the sort of night you can only dream of normally. Except, when I learned that we owed £3 for the rooms, that dream quickly turned into a nightmare. Oops, sorry about that. The building was so impressive and the entrance so inviting, I just wandered in without thinking. In a lodging house in Japan, that sum of money would put a roof over your head for a whole year. I did try, but I'm afraid I couldn't help my tears when we were presented with the bill. Ugh, I really am sorry. Well, never mind. We must find some more affordable lodging straight away, though. If we're not careful, our entire stipend will be used up in 10 days or less. Ugh, London is a scary place. Ah, good morning to you at this early hour. Hello, man I don't trust. Oh yes, well. Good morning to you, Lord Chief Justice. We have come to report on the outcome of the trial at the Old Bailey yesterday. Susato-san is amazing. She doesn't bat an eyelid, even in the presence of the imposing Lord Strongheart. Yes, I believe you had a very comprehensive initiation into British courtroom practices. Oh yes, it was very eye-opening, thank you. And in accordance with your instructions, Lord Strongheart, Mr. Naruhodo performed his duty to the end. Yes, I've already been apprised of events. You conducted a remarkable defense. You may consider the test passed. Oh! No longer are you a student from the Empire of Japan. You may henceforth claim to be a fully fledged lawyer. Seriously, where are those birds coming from? My country is delighted to welcome young talent from such a remote eastern land. Thank you very much. So, I'm a lawyer now. It only took 3 cases. Now, in view of your new appointment, I have a fresh case in mind for you. I'd like you to take it on at once. I trust that won't be a problem. Another case? Already? Nothing trains a lawyer better than practical experience. I'm sure I don't sense dissatisfaction, do I? It's just that yesterday's trial ended unusually. I haven't quite come to terms with it. What's to come to terms with? The man was cleared. What more were you hoping for? Does he know about the fire? The culpability of the defendant has not at the present time been established by this court. Consequently, the jury will not be required to proffer judgment. Also, I'm pretty sure I had a quick look into it, and I think Double Jeopardy under a different name was a thing at the time, so yikes. Well, Lord Van Zeeks, it's been a pleasure, so it has. And as for you, my dear fella, I couldn't have asked for a better defence. I just can't help wondering if Mr. McGilded really was innocent. Mr. Naruhodo, it's just that I never managed to ascertain the truth. And then the trial ended. Well, you needn't let it trouble you for a second longer. Sorry? What do you mean, Lord Strongheart? Ah, so it probably was him in the carriage. Wonderful. Magnus McGilded passed away immediately following the trial. No! What? Mr. McGilded is dead. I have 19 minutes and 41 seconds until my next engagement. Time enough to talk. McGilded's death. Let's start there. I don't understand. What happened? How can he be dead? After the trial concluded yesterday, there was a great commotion in the Old Bailey. As you'll presumably recall, an omnibus had been wheeled into the courtroom. Yes, of course. That was the scene of the crime which Mr. McGilded had been accused of. Precisely. Well, while the bailiff's attention was diverted by some other matter, the omnibus went up in flames. No. How could such a thing have happened? That is being investigated as we speak, but already. The police have identified a corpse found inside the charred shell of the carriage as that of McGilded. Did he fake his death somehow? That's awful. The man must have slipped inside while the bailiff's attention was elsewhere. That bailiff really needs to pay more attention. And how could that have happened? That is also being investigated as we speak. Thinking back now, immediately after the trial, Mr. McGilded did mention going back into the courtroom to look at the omnibus. Well, I must be making tracks now. It is time for the inspection. Sorry, what inspection? They're going to examine the omnibus again, so I'm told. I asked if I could be present for it myself. An inspection of the omnibus? Not to my knowledge. I don't believe Scotland Yard had any intention of re-examining the carriage. But then who is Mr. McGilded talking about? Never mind that now. The Yard is making a thorough investigation. This matter is no longer any concern of yours. Leave it to the police. Poor Mr. McGilded. Yikes. So, how did you find your first taste of our country's Supreme Court? Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, it was wow. Mr. Naruhodo means that the whole experience was steeped in the solemnity of Great Britain's long history. It's really a world apart from our own judicial system in Japan, which is only a few short decades old. Wow, Suzato-san has such a way with words. But you seem to have a way of failing to find the right ones. The judicial system here is the most advanced in the world. Learn all you can. The most advanced in the world, is it? Is it? Is it? It was fortunate that your very first trial was a simple affair. Simple? That was simple. As I believe I mentioned yesterday morning, it was a trial you couldn't lose. I don't mean to be contrary, Lord Strongheart, but the case was anything but simple. The circumstances of the case were so incriminating I was stunned when I first heard them. In fact, I'm still finding it hard to believe that we managed to get a favourable verdict. Is something funny? No, my apologies. However, the fact is that you did receive the not guilty verdict you set out to achieve. And that can only be attributed to exceptional talent, wouldn't you agree? Well, I don't know about that. Well, never mind. You exceeded my expectations, I freely admit. That much, at least, is an undeniable truth. Which is precisely why I prepared for the new case for you that I mentioned before. What's going on? What was he going to say before? Could you perhaps give us some more details about the new case you mentioned? Don't tell me it's a murder, and the trial starts in 10 minutes. Don't worry, it's nothing so alarming or quite so urgent as your last assignment. In fact, this case is completely different. Oh, I see. Did he just read my mind? That is to say, no one has died, as yet. And the trial will not be today. There is plenty of time to research the case thoroughly. 23 hours, 43 minutes, and 19 seconds to be precise. What is this guy's deal? So the trial's tomorrow then. Is everything alright? Oh, yes, I'm just a little confused, that's all. Yesterday's trial was... well, it's left me wondering if I'm really cut out for being a lawyer. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. I don't know if I could face standing in that courtroom again after Mr. McGilded's trial. Ah, yes, I nearly forgot. There is one similarity with yesterday's case. Once again, there is currently no one to advocate for the defence. Oh. If the situation remains unchanged, the trial will start tomorrow with the defendant unrepresented. And if that happens, I need not remind you of the inevitable outcome. The most terrible end awaits the defendant. Yes, that's right. Here we go again. CA needs to get more sleep, you guys. Your time is up. You'll have to excuse me. I would advise you to begin making preparations for tomorrow's trial. After all, the clock is ever ticking. There is now but 23 hours, 26 minutes and 39 seconds until the court sits. Last time you mentioned the 23 hours, he said there was plenty of time. And one more thing, Mr. Naruhodo. There is something I should like to ask you. Oh, what's that? Yesterday you remarked upon something... that you intend to see through the will of your late compatriot, Mr. Osogi. I would be interested to hear what exactly you mean by that. Inside 34 seconds. Oh, well, Kazuma always used to say, you see, that he wanted to learn how the greatest justice system in the world worked so he could change ours in Japan. Now that he's gone, I'd like to work towards that myself, and there's another thing. Oh! Another thing? Continue. On the way here on the steamship, he said something to me. There's something very important that I have to do. Something very important. And what exactly would that be? He never had a chance to tell me. I suppose he would have done if he'd ever made it to Great Britain. You're out of time. Well, thank you for an enlightening discussion. Mr. Naruhodo, what's all this about? Mr. Osogi never once mentioned anything of the sort to me. I urge you both to focus your attentions on the matter at hand. I've taken the liberty of summoning the police inspector in charge of the case. He'll be able to apprise you of the details. How long has he been there? So, I wish you the best of luck, and bid you farewell. There's something very important that I have to do. Kazuma-sama, what did you mean? I wish I knew, but honestly he never told me. Anyway, we had better talk to the detective, don't you think? Yes, you're right. I hope I'm just imagining it, but I wouldn't say he looks pleased to see us at all. I've heard about his cone of chips. I want the cone of chips. Look at these menacing metal giants facing each other across the room. I believe they're suits of armour. Oh, right. I thought maybe they were like the lion dogs we have in Japan guarding shrine gates. No, not at all. In fact, in Europe, suits of armour like these are always possessed by evil spirits, you know. And they roam around in the middle of the night. Yeah, that sounds about right. Really? Is there nothing you don't know, Mrs. Zato? This book tells me everything I need to know about everything. If you're ever unsure, just ask. Where did she get that incredible tome? Yeah, it's a good question. Just look at all the naughty books packed together on these shelves. They go from floor to ceiling. And they're all books that you couldn't hope to come by in Japan. It's like a dream. Yes, a very bad dream. They're not all about British law either. There are books about the judicial systems of other Western nations. France, Germany, Spain, Holland. What about Russia? Why do you ask? I was wondering about asking the Lord Chief Justice how you say wardrobe in Russian. What do you think? I think perhaps it's a thought best abandoned. Yeah, I don't know why you'd want to talk about that. Is this some kind of clock? Actually, I think we might be inside some sort of giant clock. But those gears are larger than anything you'd find on a steam locomotive even. It's eerie. Do you think clocks are some sort of hobby of his? The Lord Chief Justice, I mean. Well, boys do enjoy fiddling around with machines, don't they? I'm not sure you could fiddle with cogs that size, and I'm certain you couldn't call him a boy. Still, it's amazing how little noise the cogs make, considering how large they are. There's actually something quite soothing about their precise rhythm. Yeah, as someone who really hates the sounds of clocks ticking, I'm glad that it's not super noisy in that regard. This must be the Lord Chief Justice's desk. I believe it's made of marble. It looks more like an over-the-top tombstone that's toppled over to me. I think that's your fanciful imagination at work again, Mr. Naruhodo. It feels like everything that's normally made of wood and paper at home is made of bricks and stone here. I know. That's why this place feels so overbearing, I'm sure. Okay, Chipman. Although actually, I guess I can... Is there any point to this? No. Well, good to know. Could we trouble you? What do you think? Ah! Lovely weather, isn't it? What's the weather got to do with anything? Ugh. Listen to me, you young Japanese upstart. Some frippery about the weather doesn't get every English gent eating out of your hand, you know. But Suzato-san told me it was foolproof. I'm a busy man, a very busy man. There's a crime scene to investigate, but I'm here to give the likes of you a talking to. Oh, I'm ever so sorry. Can you imagine what the other officers there will be saying? Haven't seen Gregson anywhere, have you? No, he's too busy with the bigwigs these days. And all because of some bumpkin who's here on a jaunt from a country I've never even heard of. Hear that ripping sound? That's my reputation at the yard going to tatters. There's no need to rip us apart as well. I don't believe we've been introduced. This is Mr. Ryunosuke Naruhodo, a defense lawyer. Eh? It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant, Eh? It's lovely weather we're having today, isn't it? It is unseasonably fine, I grant you. London winters don't see a lot of sunshine. Unbelievable! How did she pull that off? So, Lord Stronghart has asked me to fill you in on the case. The name's Tobias Gregson. Inspector Gregson to you. I'm from Scotland Yard. Gregson? Inspector Gregson? What's the matter with Susato-san? Does this detective's name mean something to her? Inspector, are you perhaps the Inspector Gregson? You're acting like you know this man, Miss Susato, but he's a London detective. Oh, I do know him. Very well, in fact. Very well? Yes, he features prominently in The Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes. There it is. Oh, in that publication. What's it called again? Rance magazine. That's right. Inspector Gregson and Mr. Sholmes enjoy a wonderful friendly rivalry. I'm not quite sure that's how it goes, but okay. Really? You rival the great Mr. Sholmes? That's incredible. Oh, well, I don't know about that. Mr. Sholmes isn't a professional like myself, of course, but he does come up with the goods from time to time. Mr. Sholmes is equally complimentary about you, Inspector, isn't he? You've earned his highest praise. Gregson is the pick of a bad lot of all the Scotland Yarders. Those were his own words. That's his highest praise? Well, Mr. Sholmes isn't particularly known for giving compliments, you see. That he is not. And thanks to that magazine, my name's known all over London town now. That's great, isn't it? Huh. I have to admit that to start with I was a little, well, flattered by all the attention. Everyone wanted to shake my hand and my reputation at the yard went through the roof. Well, that's wonderful. No, it is not. There's nothing more sinister than the man on the street. People are always looking at me now. They're whispering rumours about me under their breath, I'm sure. Rumours? Are you quite sure? He's changed since he started appearing in those stories. The fame's gone to his head, stuff like that. Gosh, do you really think people are saying such mean-spirited things about you? Like I said, they whisper, so I can't catch exactly what they're saying, but I know what folk are like. I'm sure that's what they're saying, as sure as eggs is eggs. I get the feeling this detective could be very hard work. Oh dear, perhaps the sudden rise to fame does change people. Let's check out the case. So, about the case that the Lord Chief Justice mentioned before. None to tell, really. As far as we're concerned at the yard, it couldn't be simpler. Oh dear, that probably means... But as far as we're concerned as lawyers, it couldn't be more complicated. I wish you were wrong about that, but I have a nasty feeling you're right. A young woman was walking along the pavement on Briar Road when she was stabbed from behind. Fortunately, it wasn't fatal, but she's still laid up in hospital unconscious. What? That she survived? That doesn't normally happen in these games. That's despicable. What sort of coward would attack the poor woman from behind? I suppose you would have finished whoever it was off with a Susato takedown, would you? That is neither here nor there, Mr. Naruhodo. Brace yourself, Ryunosuke. You've angered her now. Anyway, after something of a whirlwind investigation, the criminal was arrested. He barely had time for a cup of tea after the incident took place, to be honest. Ooh, a cup of tea sounds good right now. So there must have been something left at the scene that led you directly to the culprit. Or perhaps a reliable witness who recognised the person in question. Let me stop you right there. You're wasting your time on this one. Sorry? There's nothing you can do. There's no way to help the bloke now. Why ever not? Simple. The prosecutor that's been assigned to the trial tomorrow is Lord Baroque von Zeeks. Van Zeeks, I keep reading it wrong. No! Sounds like you've heard of him then. We've beaten him, actually. Oh yes, we are very familiar with Lord Van Zeeks. Believed to be the harbinger of death itself. The Reaper of the Bailey. Lord Baroque von Zeeks, who we faced in court only yesterday. Mr. McGill told us about him before the trial, didn't he? When Van Zeeks stands for the prosecution, they call the accused his sacrificial lambs. And in every single trial in which he's been the prosecutor, the accused has been damned. Apologies again for the yawning. This Reaper of the Bailey nickname. I suppose he's earned that because every defendant he advocates against is found guilty, is that it? Well, if that's the case, we should inform you, Inspector, that in yesterday's trial against Lord Van Zeeks, Mr. Naruhodo secured a verdict of not guilty. Huh. And what of it? Oh, well, I think... That means that even against the Reaper of the Bailey, it's not impossible to save the defendant. Yeah, but I don't think that being burnt alive inside a murder scene is really not applicable as being damned. I think that counts. No, you really don't have a clue, do you? What do you mean? What happened to that bloke in the end, eh? He's dead. Ah! Magnus McGilded came a-cropping that omnibus when it went up in flames. So you can't rightly say you saved the defendant, can you? What are you saying? Look, if Van Zeeks could get the dirt stick on everyone, he'd be a miracle worker. But that's not how it goes. He doesn't work miracles, he works magic. Black magic. Okay, so it's not like a Von Karma perfect record thing, it's heck, even if you're innocent, you're probably dead soon. I'd have a good long think about that if I were you. Are we really supposed to believe that? Right, well, I've filled you in as requested, and I'm very nearly out of chips. So I'll be heading back to the crime scene now. We're still carrying out a few investigations there. It was Briar Road, you said, didn't you? Where the incident took place. That's correct, ma'am. And if you head over to the holding cells, you can meet the criminal himself. You branded him a criminal already. He's as good as, shaken like a leaf in his cell he is. It'll give you a chuckle if nothing else. He's inmate 53. Speak to the jailer and he'll show you the way. Inmate 53? Thank you. Bye, Gregson. So there's no helping anyone against the Reaper of the Bailey, they say. Is something troubling you, Mr. Naruhodo? To tell the truth, when I recall the trial yesterday, I can't stop myself from shaking. The idea of facing the Reaper in court again is... Well, if you think it's too much for you, there's no shame in turning the case down. That takes courage too. But if the man they've arrested is innocent, you could well imagine he would be shaking like a leaf in his cell. And I, for one, wouldn't find the sight of that funny. So, if I'm honest, I'm still reeling from the shock of yesterday's events myself. And I'm really not sure if I'll be able to help this man, whoever he is. But I'd like to try, so I think I'm going to make some inquiries. Will you help? Did you really think you had to ask? After all, I am your judicial assistant. Thank you. So then, shall we? Yes, let's go! Ugh, I can't hear this music without thinking about Case 2, which I'm deeply afraid of. Let's go to the prison first. So these are British prison cells. Oh, they're ghastly. It feels just like a dungeon. Yes, and having experienced it in Japan myself, I can assure you that our wooden cells feel a lot cosier than these cold stone walls. Oh, don't, Mr. Naruhodo. You're making it seem worse. Apparently our client is in this cell here. But it's so dark at the back there I can't make him out. I wonder what he's like. Inmate 53, your legal representative is here to see you. Stop hiding at the back of the cell and show your face at once. Am I a cat as yet with no name? Calling me by a number? It's utterly, unbelievably, unjustly unreasonable. I refuse to answer. Mr. Naruhodo, what? Gosh, why can't I stop yawning this playthrough? Guess my brain's just working overtime keeping up with the reading. What do you think is going on here? I have no idea, but I wasn't just hearing things, was I? That tirade of complaints was in Japanese. Well, I'm afraid of him already. Excuse me, but who— Shh! Quiet! They're all around, hiding. I know they are. They're watching, listening, even now. I can sense it. Right. So could I ask you who— There you are, you've come to curse me, haven't you? Don't try to hide it, you're a ghost. A ghost? We mean you no harm, Prisoner-san. Are you Japanese by any chance? This is beyond my wildest dreams. Okay. Forgive me for that outburst before. I'm so sorry. Oh, it's fine. We were just a little surprised, that's all. Imagine it! It's been 12 long months since I left my hometown, and here I am in a frightful fix in a foreign land. So hearing the sweet, sentimental tones of a compatriot's voice here in this damp, dark hellhole was a most monumentally moving moment. Who could have guessed that this new client Lord Strongheart assigned to us would turn out to be a fellow Japanese? What compassion my fellow countrymen show to dispatch a first-class lawyer all the way from Japan to defend a mere foreign student. Noble, nurturing, never failing. A first-class lawyer? Oh dear, I think there's been something of a misunderstanding here. I wonder, would you be so kind as to tell us what's happened? Why you've been detained as a suspect, for example? Yes, I can. I will. Shan't stay sullen and silent. I'm not quite sure I understand what he means, but he seems happy. Yes, he does. I just hope he actually has a good reason to be. Thank you for your cooperation. I am a lawyer, as you said. My name is Ryunosuke Naruhodo. And I'm Naruhodo-san's judicial assistant, Susato Mikusuba. I am a visiting student sent here by our government. Notably notoriously named Natsume. Suzeki Natsume. Suzeki Natsume-san. What an unusual name. Call me Suzeki, please. I'm a poet, you see, a writer of haiku. It's something of a nom de plume. A nom de plume? You mean an alias? That's right, Naruhodo-san. No, don't be so prosaic. It's much more refined than that. And haiku, that really reminds me of home. Did I hear you say that you were a visiting student sent over here by the government? Yes, that's right. A year ago I was told to go and study English. First I had to suffer in that misery, and now this. It's beyond the pale. Suffer that misery? Did you not want to study here? No, I mean, I've had an interest in Great Britain for some years, of course. Oh. But just because the government tells you to do something doesn't mean you can do it. No. What do you mean? If they told me to study English literature, that I could have understood. That's my field. But no, they told me to study the English language. Utterly, unbelievably, unjustly unreasonable. I see. Only the other day I was told to send a report about my first year here. I tendered a blank piece of paper. Wise words on whitewashy. must be a man of great standing. Oh yes, so I'm often told. And often like to be told, it seems. Could you perhaps tell us exactly why you've been arrested, Sasaki-san? I didn't do it! I didn't commit that atrocious murder! Murder? Oh, no, it's alright. The woman didn't actually die, did she? But she was stabbed with a knife right before my eyes! Before your eyes? You mean you saw the attack? I didn't see anyone. What? If I'd seen the person who did it, do you think I'd be locked up in here? Oh dear, it seems this case is becoming rather complicated. Why me? Why me? Why did that silly woman have to be stabbed in front of me? It's the curse of London. It's incredibly, inexcusably, irritatingly inconvenient. So Sasaki-san was there at the scene, but he didn't see the attacker. It's vital that we find out more about the case. It was an accursed evening, just after the snow had started to clear and heavy with fog. I'd been to the bookshop to buy some books, and I was on my way back to my accursed lodgings, and my laptop is running out of battery. Sure the bookshop wasn't accursed too? As I was walking along that accursed pavement, I could make out the sole silhouette of another ahead of me. A woman wearing a green overcoat she was, and just as I went to overtake her, she suddenly let out a little scream and collapsed on the cold, hard slabs of stone at my feet. How terrible! I called out to the woman, but she didn't move. It was like her. Ghostly, ghoulish, grim graveyard. Slight exaggeration there, perhaps. I was terrified. I had to get away from there. So I ran as fast as my legs would carry me back to my accursed lodgings. That's not good. They'll say it was shameful, I know, to run away like that. Tell me, Sasaki-san, was the victim an acquaintance of yours? Don't be ridiculous. Do you think I know any of these fair-haired English, and a young woman at that? I'm diffident, shy, timid, unsure. I can't talk to people. I see. A young woman unknown to Sasaki-san. And at the time it happened. Who else did you see nearby? Did anybody pass you? Regrettably, apart from myself and the woman, I didn't see a soul. No one? Oh, great. So the victim was unknown to you and there was nobody else on the street at the time. That creates something of a conundrum, doesn't it? What conundrum? What do you mean, Susato-san? Where's the conundrum? Well, if what Sasaki-san has just told us is true, there's something I can't explain. He says that he didn't know the victim and that there was no one else at the scene. Then he apparently fled without having been seen. I did. But if that's the case, how did the police find him? Surely this man had to be the culprit. Ah! You... What did you just say? Nothing. I didn't say anything. Oops, perhaps I thought that a little loudly. Actually, that's not what was troubling me. What I was thinking was, how did Sasaki-san actually come to be arrested? Sorry? He didn't touch the victim and there was nobody at the scene to see him. So how did the police ever discover that he was there in the first place? Oh yes, she's right. It was him. That accursed great detective. He led the police to me. Of all the bad luck. Accursed great detective. Could it be? I shall never forget that man's name as long as I live. With his haughty laugh and his self-proclaimed greatness. Brash, big-headed busybody, be gone. May you be cursed until the end of your days. Herlock Sholmes. I knew it. Mr. Sholmes? Well, I didn't expect to hear that name from this man's lips, that's for sure. It was the morning after the nightmare had unfolded on the pavement before me. I was gnawing on a sliver of hard cheese when some men suddenly burst in through the door. They started shouting at me, "This is the police, put that weapon down!" Yes, it was a thin sliver, and yes, it was hard, but I wasn't eating a weapon. Disgusting dietary discrimination devils. You clearly had a trying morning yesterday. And there he was in the middle of all the policemen, grinning like a Cheshire cat. That Herlock Sholmes. It's actually just Herlock Sholmes. He's English. I've since found out that he's a famous name in detection here in London. Yes, the great detective is really very well known. And his overly sharp mind managed to deduce my whereabouts, apparently. He thinks I'm the knife-wielding madman. Me, this weak, stooped kitten of a man. I wonder what great deduction process led him to his conclusion this time. Do you mean to say that Mr. Sholmes' deduction was the only reason the police arrested you? That would be really most unreasonable. Well, the thing is, I was thrown into a panic when they barged their way in. Of course you were, that's only natural. I was terrified and trembling, and they kept throwing question after question at me in impossible English. Fiendish foreign flimflammery. Wow, I'm tired of that quirk already. Well, we are in England. You can't really blame them for questioning you in English. Good point, but my mind went blank. I knew I had to answer, but I didn't know what to say. So I just kept repeating things like, "Yes, I do," and "I'm fine." Alright, Apollo. The next thing I knew, I was in manacles, and before I knew it, I was thrown in here. Oh dear, I'm afraid that's hardly surprising. I'm fine. He's not fine now. Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. Oh, you can just call me Naruhodo. And when we're speaking English, a simple Mr. is more than enough. Oh, yes, alright, yes. They've really got to me. This country is poisoning my mind. But please, I beg you to defend me in court tomorrow. You can tell them what really happened. You'll do it, won't you? Well, why? Why is it so hard to say yes to me? Well, the thing is, I'm just a student like yourself on a study tour. A student? I have defended a case in the Old Bailey, only the one though. But at this moment in time, I really don't know what I'm supposed to believe in. I'm confused about what justice in this country even means. Yeah, aren't we all? Oh, Naruhodo-san. I'm not even the foreign student who was supposed to be here. I'm a sort of locum lawyer, I suppose. But that armband, that's the mark of a defense lawyer from our great empire. It's a keepsake from the man who should have been here. He was my best friend. A keepsake? I know exactly what they're saying about me. Oh, who do you mean? The lawyers, all the British defence lawyers. They won't defend me. Goodness, why do you say that? Because of the period-typical racism? For the same reason as you noted before, when it happened. There was only the victim and myself around, and I ran away from the scene of the crime. Okay, well at least that's slightly more logical. I'm not a fool. I know it looks as though I must be the culprit. It must be very hard for you, Saseki-san. And anyway, I'm a student from overseas. I'm just a foreign nobody to them, somebody not to be trusted. Ah, there's the period-typical racism. Great. I did not miss it. I heard them openly laughing about me before, in my earshot without any compunction at all. Any trial for this man will be a waste of time, they said. And, of course the foreigner did it. They even had the gall to say the man doesn't understand half of what's being said anyway. That's awful. They're wrong. I've studied more English than half of the policemen out there on the streets. I've travelled halfway around the world to learn about these people's country and its great history. But no one here wants to listen to a man with a strange accent. They all hate me. So, at the very least, I'd like to entrust my fate to someone who can listen to me in my native tongue. You could do it, couldn't you? When I look into your eyes, I can see it. I can see what you've been through. Saseki-san, it's just that... Give me a little time, please. I'll do what I can for the time being. What do you mean? We shall investigate the case as thoroughly as possible. If we can find some clues, it will give us a much better chance, I'm sure. Oh yes, thank you. I'll be here, all alone, waiting for you. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. We should get going then, Naruhodo-san. We have a case to prepare for. Yeah, I guess we do. Off to the crime scene then, I guess. So this is where it happened, Briar Road. Ah, look, Mr. Naruhodo. Look at that regulation metal helmet. It's unmistakable. The men of Scotland Yard are here. They're investigating as we speak. That is their job, you know. But Mr. Naruhodo, to see one with my own eyes. They're often depicted in The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, but I never dreamt I'd ever come this close. To a real Bobby's helmet. What? The helmet? Of course. I have to try one on one day. Well, I hope your hatty dream comes true. What's the Japanese delegation doing here? Oh, Inspector Gregson. This isn't on the tourist trail, as I'm fairly sure you're well aware. Yes, of course. We're here to investigate. So you've been to the holding cells then? What do you make of the criminal? He's not a criminal as you put it, Inspector. He's a suspect. Huh, we'll see about that. You Japanese like to stick together, I suppose. Oh boy. Well, do what you will. It doesn't bother me. The bloke's in court tomorrow, whatever happens, and the verdict's a foregone conclusion. Ugh, the stone-cold air of rejection. Take heart, London at this time of year is full of stone-cold air. That makes it worse, somehow. Actually, I'm going to take a quick break here, because I'm obviously tired, as you can tell, so I will be back soon. Okay, I'm back. Full disclosure, it's actually been like a week since I picked this game up. Real life happened again, as it unfortunately so often seems to be doing to me right now. And I have no idea what the heck my posting schedule on this game is, especially since I'm going away in a couple of weeks. So, yeah. Sorry, if you're watching. I'm doing my best. This is very much a hobby for me. I do actually have a real-life job and all that fun stuff, so it's sort of a when-I-can upload basis. But for now, back to investigating. I remember exactly none of what's going on, so we'll see. Tell me about Scotland Yard, Inspector. Ever since I read about it in The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, I've been fascinated by the place. The Yard is the most sophisticated policing organisation you'll find anywhere in the world, ma'am. Oh, and you know, I've always dreamt of wearing a real Bobby's helmet. It does make them look the part, seeing that policeman there with his helmet on. You certainly get the sense that this is a man who will take no nonsense in his duty of protecting the city. Oh yes, doesn't he look wonderful? Being a London bobby is hard going, I can tell you. Oh, really? First thing in the morning, you know what he does? Goes around and rouses all the labourers on his beat so they can get off to work. What? He wakes people up? Yep, raps on their windows with a long pole. Did it myself going back a bit. I had no idea. That sounds familiar, actually. The bobby works for the people of the town. It's just another one of his duties. I have no idea what voice I was doing for Gregson. I'm making this up as I go along. After that, he starts tirelessly patrolling the streets all day long. He has to cover 20 miles a day. That's the regulation distance. I can't really imagine how far that is, but it sounds like a long way. Let me see. 20 miles. That's approximately the distance from Tokyo to Yokohama. On foot? That's definitely taking things a step too far. And when it gets dark, of course, he has the important job of lighting all the gas street lamps. Yes, that I did know about. Oh my! And I suppose in between all of those duties, bobbies are expected to investigate cases as well? And chase after criminals trying to evade the law. I'm not sure you could call it in between exactly. More alongside, but yes. They're expected to handle those jobs as well. We do have men keeling over from time to time, I admit. I've always dreamt of wearing one of those helmets, as I said. But it's with a heavy heart that I shall have to relinquish that dream to you, Mr. Naruhodo. Your heavy heart will be my heavy head if you do. It happened at around 5 in the evening 2 days ago, just there on that open bit of pavement. The victim, a young woman, was stabbed with a blade from behind. Is it right that the lady is still unconscious now? You mentioned that she's being treated in hospital. Yeah, this is wild, because when have we had an Ace Attorney case that didn't involve someone actually dying? At least, we've had cases where they weren't dead originally, I think, but still. I never said she was a lady. Truth is, unless she comes around pretty smartish, we won't be able to find out much about her at all. I suppose that means they haven't been able to take a statement from her, of course. Here's a map of the local area I happen to have on me. You can take it if you want. Really? Are you sure? It's our policy to give lawyers defending suspects the odd bit of information to go on. Makes a change from standard Ace Attorney then. I haven't actually accepted the job yet, but still. Thank you, Inspector. We gratefully accept. The local map. Okay, fabulous. Anyway, as far as we know, there was no one else on the scene other than the victim and your fellow countrymen. So who did it, do you think? Not much of a head-scratcher, is it? Well, I know Mr. Natsumi is also claiming not to have seen anyone else around, but just because he didn't see anyone, it doesn't mean we can be sure that nobody else was present. I'm sorry to have to tell you, but we most certainly can be sure. How? Because, ma'am, the precise moment of the stabbing didn't go unnoticed. It what? We have 2 very reliable witnesses, no less. Well then, clearly there were other people in the area. Ah! It was a typical foggy London day, and your client obviously didn't see them. There are witnesses now? Who are these witnesses, Inspector? A fellow and his wife, and the man's one of the most reliable and respected citizens in all of London. So he probably did it then. He's a copper from Scotland Yard. Ah! A policeman? That might change things. And this policeman just happened to be there at the exact moment the woman was attacked. Nothing peculiar about that, Mom. Part and parcel of being a bobby, catching and banging the act and all that. Do you think it might be possible for us to ask that policeman a few questions? Be my guest. You can ask him what you like. In court tomorrow. Oh. I've no doubt he'll be summoned as a witness. So that'll give you something to look forward to. That's that then. He's got no intention of letting us meet the man beforehand, it seems. A policeman witnessed the incident. As your judicial assistant, I must warn you that this could make our job very difficult indeed. Yes, as a non-judicial assistant, I could have warned me of that too. Oh yes, one more thing, Inspector. What? The person who led you to the suspect. I hear that was Mr. Herlock Sholmes. What are you bringing him up for? Was it something I said? The colour is drained from his cheeks. Let's go to the trial first. That twitchy bloke goes on trial tomorrow. Are you going to defend him or not? Well, makes no difference to me, but I will just say this. No London lawyer worth his salt would touch that case with a barge pole. Because the prosecution is being handled by the Reaper of the Bailey, you mean? There's no way to save the man now. It's a waste of time trying. It is all a bit strange, though. Sorry? The Reaper. He hasn't appeared in court once for a good few years now. Yes, we did hear something to that effect. And the only people he usually bothers with are the real scum. The master criminals. The violent ones. Master criminals? The violent ones? That's right, he handpicks his victims, only deals with those guaranteed to go to the gallows for their sins. That's actually very interesting, and also pretty smart, given that everyone seems to die whatever he does. But yeah. It's very weird, because whereas with, like, Manfred von Karma, he was perfect record, everyone's guilty, I don't care who you are, you're guilty. But this guy wins and loses, only deals with people who are, like, genuinely going to die. I don't know, he's being set up as weirdly sympathetic for someone who's kind of awful. But Mr. Natsume wouldn't hang for what he's accused of, surely. That's just my point, sunshine. Yes, the young woman was stabbed, but didn't kill her. Couldn't even say the intent was there. So this isn't the sort of case I'd be expecting the Reaper to want to sink his teeth into, for want of a better phrase. Well, it's not exactly a minor infraction, is it? No, there's gotta be more to it. Some reason he's taken an interest. Really? What sort of reason, Inspector? You think I could tell you what's going on inside the head of that Lord of Darkness? You'll have to ask him yourself at tomorrow's trial. Are we really going to have to face the Reaper again? The Lord of Darkness, as he put it. That is one hell of a title. That's two hells of a title, to be fair. I mean, he's terrible, but he definitely has the aesthetic. Alright, let's bring up Sholmes again. Who did you hear that name from? Oh, well, it was Mr. Natsume who mentioned it. He said that Mr. Sholmes was with the police when they entered his lodgings. I'm sure it was the result of one of Mr. Sholmes' inspirational great deductions. Fiddle faddle. Ah! The man's an amateur, and I'm getting sick and tired of him showing his mug everywhere. Oh. I don't know where he gets his information from, but he turns up at the scene of the crime, wanders around spouting incomprehensible rubbish, and before you know it, he claims to have solved the case. Yes, he's quite astounding, isn't he? He's a great help to Scotland Yard, though, isn't he? Gibble gabble. Ah! Ever seen this before? Oh yes, that's Rant magazine. The wonderful publication in which the adventures of Herlock Sholmes appears. Yes, well, that wonderful publication, as you put it, sees fit to include several of the Yard's detectives in its stories. And the so-called great detective makes a mockery of all of us. If you ask anyone at the Yard, it's a misadventure to be included in any Herlock Sholmes tale at all. Well, I suppose there is an element of that. We work our socks off, every one of us, only to be frumped by the public thanks to that obnoxious detective. The man's as dangerous to us as Scotland Yard as he is to all our criminals. That can't really be true, can it, Inspector? Clearly the great detective and the police have a complex relationship. Yeah, you could say that. Well, I don't think we're going to get any more useful information out of the detective. Time to look around then. Mr. Naruhodo, can I make a suggestion? Oh, yes, what is it? Well, it seems to me that we must speak with him about this. By him, do you mean Mr. Sholmes? Yes, Mr. Herlock Sholmes, exactly. Look at those shining eyes. You can't wait, can you? Well, Mr. Natsumi did blame Mr. Sholmes for all of this, didn't he? Yes, he did. He really did. Which makes him an involved party in the case. Are you just going to ignore that? I hope not. I assure you, it's not simply my selfish desire to meet with Mr. Sholmes again. The trouble is, we have no idea of the man's address even, so how— it's Baker Street! How do you know that? It's in the stories, of course. 221B Baker Street, the most famous address in the world. Okay, so they went with Herlock Sholmes, but couldn't be bothered changing his address. Good to know. Oh, I see. Well, there's nothing to stop us from going, I suppose. We better try to find our way there before Susato-san gets any more excited and unpredictable. Hurrah! I'll summon a carriage! So we'd have a reunion already. With the great detective, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. Oh, I'm excited. But we really ought to have a look around the scene first, which I will do in a moment, because I'm cold and I want to get a blanket. Okay, let's have a look around. I also have no idea how many episodes I'm going to get out of the case now that we're doing investigation and court. I can't believe it's case 4 and that still hasn't happened yet, but we'll see where we go, I guess. Oh, that's a Scotland Yard carriage! They use vehicles like that to rush to crime scenes and cart away criminals. You're very well informed, aren't you? It's long been a dream of mine to ride one of those through the streets of London. Well, just pick up a stone and throw it through one of the windows then. But that would mean being arrested in order to ride it. Wouldn't it? Still, if it's the only way, help me find a good stone. No, 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 I wasn't serious. I love that she took that seriously. Hee, what's a delightful snowman? I didn't realise that the English had a tradition of making snowmen as well. It looks a little creepy though. Oh, it has a scarf, look! You'd need one if you were out in this freezing cold all the time. I wish I had one. I'm afraid our budget is somewhat frozen at the moment too. We certainly can't afford a scarf. Surely the snowman here wouldn't miss his. But the person who made the snowman certainly would. Yes, I know, you're right. Anyway, even if I borrowed it, it wouldn't do much to warm my neck, would it? It's covered in snow. This patch of pavement must be where the incident occurred. Yes, it's very wide open space, isn't it? That's true. I can't see anywhere an attacker could have been hiding. Oi! What are you foreigners doing here? Ah! Oh, just investigating the scene, officer. Conspiring with that mustached fella from Japan, are you? Conspiring? Come here to destroy evidence, have you? Get out of here before I give you an hiding. Go on. Gregson, feel like giving us a hand? He shooed us away like rats. Yes, we should give him a wide berth, I think. What a disappointing experience. I don't know what you expected, but... It's one of the officers from Scotland Yard. The police are making sure the crime scene is undisturbed. I have a feeling that if we wander too close, we'll be clapped in irons. I think perhaps you're being a little overcautious. We've done nothing wrong, so we can have no cause for concern. Oh no, I'm not getting caught out again. Twice is enough. Twice I found myself in handcuffs despite not knowing a thing about what was going on. Yes, you've had some dreadful experiences. I'm sure it's that wide-eyed look of panic you're so prone to. It does you no favours at all. Ugh. Yeah, maybe not. Oh, a British bicycle, look! Although the wheel is so misshapen, I'm sure it couldn't possibly be ridden anymore. Someone must have been doing some breakneck cycling. It seems bicycles have become extremely popular in London recently. There's even a movement to change women's dress to allow them to ride as well. The bicycle fad won't last. I don't see why anyone would want to ride something like that. Goodness, do you dislike bicycles? No, not at all. I mean, it's not that I dislike them exactly. It's just that any occupation that involves taking both your feet off firm ground seems reckless. If you'd ever tried walking on stilts and fallen into a river, I know you'd agree with me. We'll have to hire a bicycle sometime. You can sit behind me while I ride you around. That's a rather typical old brick building, isn't it? I'm sure it has a long and interesting history. Well, time certainly seems to have taken its toll on the place. It's crooked and sagging all over. In fact, it looks in decidedly worse shape than the other houses around here. We must find some cheap lodging ourselves as soon as possible. Yes, you're right. Cheap, but ideally with reasonably level floors. Yeah, my house has very uneven floors in some places. It's kind of an experience. Oh, look at the windows of that building there. Are you sure they're windows? Is this because of the window tax thing? I forget what point in British history that was, but they decided to try and get more money from the rich by taxing people based on how many windows they had. So loads of people either bricked up their windows or painted on fake ones. Fun! Good to know that tax evasion has been a thing since this long ago. Yes, but they're all filled in with bricks. Oh, you're right. I wonder why. Perhaps it's an empty property where nobody lives at the moment. There's smoke coming from the chimneys, though. Oh dear, everything still feels very foreign. There's so much we have to learn about this place. The clouds look so big and heavy in the sky, don't they? Welcome to London. And with a dense fog as well, everything looks hazy. Well, it is known as Foggy London Town. I can just make out some sort of spire through the fog. It looks like it's still being built, though. Aha, yes! That must be Crystal Tower, being built for the great exhibition that's to open in 6 months' time. Yeah, I was gonna say, that's not exactly a familiar part of London's skyline. Apparently it's going to be very striking, glazed on all sides and the symbolic centrepiece of the exhibition. It's to be the largest exposition in history, is it? I can't even begin to imagine it. Wasn't that going to be blown up, according to the article from Case 1? Do you see all the black smoke rising from the chimneys over there? It says here that in Great Britain, many people heat their homes in winter using coal. The only chimneys I really remember seeing in Japan were on top of the bathhouse. Do you think some of those houses could be on fire? Not at all. Well, even so, that much thick smoke billowing up to the heavens is surely going to turn the whole sky black sooner or later. Gosh, you may be right about that. Insert depressing thing about climate change here. Right, is there anything left to examine? I don't think so, so it's presumably time to go and find Sholmes. Oh, actually, I guess I could have a look at this map first. Okay, nothing in particular, let's head over to Sholmes.
Thank you very much.
It's just up there overlooking the street.
Goodbye. Thanks again. This is it. The residence of Mr. Herlock Sholmes.
Oh boy, the frame rate on that cutscene could have been better. But this was originally made for 3DS, wasn't it? So I'm amazed it looks as good as it does. Here we are. So this is where the great detective makes his living. It feels surreal to be here somehow. Is it as described in the stories, Miss Susato? Susato-san? Many famous cases have been solved here in this very room. Oh, I suppose they must have been, yes. I never read the stories, so it's hard to get quite as excited about it as she seems to be. The detective chases the villain relentlessly as he disappears into the fog down an unlit London street. Oh, the thrill of it, the romanticism. Can't you feel your heart thumping in your chest? Can't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, I suppose I can, yes. So if you don't mind, I'll just stand here and soak up the atmosphere for a while longer. Please, don't mind me. Ah, she's obsessed. Well, it looks like our detective friend isn't home at present. Excuse me, is anybody home? Oh, do we have a visitor? Hello, is it a big new case for Mr. Sholmes? Hello? Wait, aren't you... I'm sure it's the same girl. Capture card died in the middle of that, so if the transition's a little awkward, that's why. Mrs. Otto, did you see the girl who was just here? Oh yes, isn't it truly extraordinary? To think that the King of Bohemia came to this very room to ask Mr. Sholmes to take on his case. The King of Bavaria? King Wilhelm Gotthard Sigismund von Ormstein, of course. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Forget the adventures of Herlock Sholmes for a moment and look over there. The cheese brewed, and I have a freshly baked cake as well. Ah yes, her theme is something. Ah, it's you. I knew it. Sato-san recognizes her too. Ah, there you are. I'm taking that with you as well. I was looking forward to the trial run of my experimental smoke grenade launcher. Oh, good day to you. I'm, well, the inventor, I suppose, of that machine. It's the girl who turned up at the end of Mr. McGilder's trial in the defendant's antechamber. I've never met a lawyer from the Far East before. Poor you, having to get straight to work when you've only just arrived in London. Oh, yes, it was challenging. Well, try this tea. It's my special blend, you know. Oh, thank you. Is tea supposed to look that colour? Oh my, what a fragrant yet mellow flavour. Hooray, it's a winner. I tried blending different leaves designed to alleviate fatigue, you see. You must be exhausted after your long voyage here, and you have another ticklish trial tomorrow. Oh, and you're to defend a Japanese man. I do wish you lots and lots of luck. Did Mr. Sholmes tell you about us by any chance? Oh, you know Hurley, do you? Hurley? Mr. Sholmes to you, surely. Mr. Sholmes was a fellow passenger on the boat that brought us to Great Britain, you see. Was he really? Well, I had no idea. I'm afraid Hurley's out on an errand again today, even though he's just returned from overseas. Wait a minute. We met this girl for the first time ever yesterday after the trial, and only briefly at that. How on earth does she know so much about us? Did she deduce all those things, do you think? And perhaps more to the point, why is she here in Mr. Sholmes's suite? Oh, silly me, I haven't introduced myself, have I? It's a great pleasure to meet you both. My name is Iris Wilson. I live here together with Hurley. Ah, Iris is it? What a lovely name. What? What's the matter? No, wait, this can't be. Did you say that your name is Wilson? What's the matter with Susato-san? Why is she so flustered all of a sudden? Yes, that's right. And what are your names? Oh, I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo, a lawyer from Japan. Oh, sorry. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant, Susato Mikotoba. It's wonderful to meet you. Lovely. Susie and Bruno. Got it. Susie? And Bruno? There's more to this girl than meets the eye. I have so many questions for her, I don't know where to start. Yes, and so do I. Well, we will talk to her in a second. Let's have a look around first. I do like this fireplace. It's one of the best things I've seen since we arrived in the country, in fact. Lingering beside the fire and watching the flames flicker and dance in the grate. Ah, it's so relaxing. We can't relax, not when there are so many interesting things on the mantelpiece. Oh, it's just as it was described in the stories. Is it? Yes, exactly. Inside that Persian slipper, for example. Oh, my chocolates for 11s. And transfixed by that large jackknife. It's my shopping list for the market. Oh, it's not quite how I remember it being described in The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Poor Susato-san, she looks crushed. A mystery shoe, a curious hammer, some mysterious dancing men, a bust of Napoleon. Ah, what an entrancing collection! This is the first time in my life that I've seen a lonely old shoe displayed as an ornament. The only one I recognise would be the bust of Napoleon from actual Sherlock Holmes canon. I'm sure the others are references too, but I'm too dumb to remember. Oh, those are all mementos that Hurley has collected from his past cases. Really? Even the bust? Yes, that's right. When the mood takes him, he likes to throw it on the floor and smash it to dust. The poor defenseless emperor. Mr. Sholmes destroys it. Yes, and then he buys a new one. You make it sound like he has the temperament of an insane sculptor. Ah, how entrancingly bohemian of him. Okay, that's what we're calling it, I guess. It looks like that huge metal chest is being used as a table for tea and coffee. It seems very sturdy, with an equally sturdy lock. Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't go around opening things. I always have to keep an eye on you, don't I? You're very mischievous. How did you come to that conclusion? Ooh, that chest! It contains some of my most valuable things. And that smile tells me you're not going to give us any clue about what they are. There's all sorts on these shelves. Chemistry apparatus, books, papers, and lots of things I've never seen before. It's all heaped up so high I can't help feeling that the whole lot is going to topple at any moment. I keep telling Hurley not to cram so much on those shelves. Good advice. He wanted to look something up in one of those books a while ago. It was so tightly wedged in he couldn't get it out, so he went and bought a new copy instead. I feel like that's the kind of thing I would do when I feel called out. What a beautiful English tea set, and so neatly arranged. It's a favourite pastime of mine, a cup of herbal tea in the afternoon. Tea made of herbs. That's right! I grow all sorts of herbs in the garden so I can experiment with different blends. One moment, don't go away. I'll brew part of the special blend I came up with earlier today. She looks delighted. I only hope it's safe to drink. Ah, that's my blackboard where I note down ideas. Oh, interesting. Let's see. Black Peter? What does that mean? Don't you want to hear what Iris has to say, Mr. Naruhodo? I'll come back to that blackboard later. That's a charming little white shelf, and full of charming little bottles, too. Oh yes, but don't touch any of those. They might explode. Explode? Are they exotic chemicals? Do you use them for exciting experiments? Yes, indeed. And as Hurley always says, chemistry is an explosive science. Sorry. I agree. A single discovery can trigger an explosion of innovation all around the world. Or perhaps he just meant it literally. Either way, mental notes. Do not touch any bottle that belongs to Iris. Yeah, it sounds like a good call. But then this is coming from me, the only person in our chemistry class to volunteer to hold the experiment that might set itself on fire at any given time, so maybe let's not let me talk. Yeah, I realised that was a very casual reference to throw into how my high school experience went, but you know. What on earth is that big black lump over there? Ah, that fascinating thing is called a typewriter. It's a machine that allows you to write on paper without needing a pen. Is that the same animation that Herlock has? And wizardly quickly, too. Ooh, that sounds like it could be very useful for someone like me with terrible handwriting. Isn't that a mood? I don't know if my handwriting really counts as terrible, but it definitely counts as illegible to most. Nothing else? Guess not. Why are all those bullet holes in the wall up there? Was Mr. Sholmes trying to shoot a pestery fly or something? Mr. Sholmes would never do something so reckless. No. Those are the letters VR, standing for Victoria Regina. It's Latin for Queen Victoria. So you mean he shot the Queen into the wall? In a moment of boredom, Mr. Sholmes adorned the wall with a patriotic sign, that's all. As pistol practice. Right, that makes perfect sense now. Does it, though? It's exactly as it's described in the stories. Oh, this is delightful. I'm not sure that the real explanation is any less reckless than shooting at a fly, personally. It's patriotic, Mr. Naruhodo. Patriotic! Okay, then. Ah, I've seen pictures of Western musical instruments like this. It's called a violin, isn't it? Of course it is. Mr. Sholmes is renowned for his violin playing. Oh, really? Absolutely. It's often explained in the stories. It's inspirational, Mr. Naruhodo. Inspirational! I immediately started playing the koto, which was the closest Japanese stringed instrument I could find. What a shame you couldn't bring it with you to London. Oh, yes, well... Papa was beaming when I asked him if he would buy me one. But after a while, he asked if I would only practice when he was out of the house. So now it's merely an ornament in my room. That must have been an awkward conversation. Oh, I got an achievement for that. Okay. I don't really understand why there are achievements in this game. I guess because it was made available for Steam and so on as well. But if there are achievements, I am happy to collect them. What on earth is this huge over-the-top machine? That's the great analytoscope. Good grief, I'm bad at reading. It can analyse anything, really. Anything at all. That's absolutely incredible. It's one of Hurley's inventions. It took him a whole year. He said it was to help him with his investigations. Interesting to know that he builds random stuff as well. I like that it's not just Iris, it's just these two creatures of chaos living together in the same place building stuff. Poor Mrs. Hudson, wherever she is in this weird universe. Probably renamed. What sort of things has he analysed with it, do you know? Well, actually, he hasn't used it for anything yet. Oh, why not? Apparently, on the evening he finally completed it, it suddenly occurred to him. I don't actually have anything I need to analyse. Oh dear. How about you, Rune? Do you have anything you'd like to analyse? The only thing that springs to mind is this machine itself. I think that's everything now. Oh, my voice is going. Should not have chosen to do that for Iris. Drink break time. Okay, let us converse. It was you that we ran into yesterday, wasn't it? At the Old Bailey. Yes, that's right. You were ever so helpful. Thank you so much. Oh no, not at all. I'm so sorry we couldn't have been more welcoming. Though at the time we did have a rather large gun pointed at us. Like this! Ugh. Ah, thinking back now. You left with Miss Lestrade in tow, didn't you? Oh yes, that awkward witness, Gina Lestrade. Oh, Ginny? Yeah, she's a professional pickpocket. So we found out. It was very naughty of her to pinch my invention like that. Are you referring to that trial-disrupting gun-like contraption? Exactly! So I followed her, you see, to get it back. Perhaps I should think about fitting a self-destruct mechanism in my inventions. This girl is dangerous. Anyway, I brought Ginny back here after that, so she could apologise to my trusty technician. Sorry, your technician? Hurley, of course, silly. Hurley? Yes, Herlock. Herlock Sholmes. We live here together. I had no idea the great detective had such an interesting young daughter. Daughter? Not likely. What? I wouldn't call him Hurley if he was my father, would I? Well then, what is your relationship with Mr. Sholmes? Well, I expect you found out that lodgings of any kind in London are very expensive. So the solution is to share the cost with a partner, a roommate. Your roommates? Who is renting to this, like, 6-year-old? I hope you don't mind me asking, Iris, but how old are you? 10 at last this year. Okay, she's 10. Still not better. Well, what of your mother and father? Oh no, they're not around. Oh, I see. I wonder what the story is there. Well, I presume that her father was just murdered in Japan, so, you know, that's fun. Oh yes, there's something I must ask you. Of course. Go ahead, Susie. I'm a very great fan of the adventures of Herlock Sholmes, and... Oh, you have a copy of Rance magazine. Yes, I read every issue. It's delivered all the way to Japan on a ship. Oh, this is so exciting! My story's being read on the other side of the world. My stories? That's right! Hurley is always solving such amazing cases, you see, and he tells me all about them. They really are quite fascinating. It would be such a shame if I was the only one who ever heard them, don't you think? Goodness. Last night he was telling me all about a new case he just solved on a steamship travelling from a faraway land. So I was just in the middle of typing up the manuscript for the next issue before you came. So you were the author? Yes, I'll let you in on a secret if you like. I'm going to call the latest adventure The Speckled Band. The Speckled Band? That's certainly very familiar. Of course, I always change 1 or 2 details in the stories, here and there. This time, I had the idea of making a venomous snake be the cause of all the trouble. Oh, that was Mr. Sholmes' first thought as well, actually. Yes, and of course, I know that a snake might not be a credible fit for the facts of the case exactly, but... it's a story. Some poetic license is justified to make it more thrilling, I think, don't you? So she's writing the actual Sherlock Holmes stories, I guess. So do you mean to say... are the stories about Mr. Sholmes that are published in Rance magazine all written by me? Yes, on my wonderful and very modern typewriter. But all the stories I've ever read are written by a doctor of medicine, Dr. John H. Wilson. Society-san's getting more and more worked up. Also, is no one going to pick up on the Dr. John H. Wilson thing? Ah, yes, that's me. I mean, my name really is Wilson. But what about the Doctor of Medicine part? That's all true too. I am a Doctor of Medicine. Again, who is letting the 10-year-old do all these things? Is this actually the worst prodigy in Ace Attorney history? I think Franziska starting prosecuting at 13 held the previous record? No, we're 10 years old. We're 10 years old. Well, that's quite incredible. But, Dr. Wilson is an English gentleman. Ah, yes. And again, was murdered recently. No one gonna bring this up. I did alter the setting slightly for the stories to be more compelling. Oh. Well, it sounds a little strange, doesn't it? A great detective with a 10-year-old girl in tow. I suppose it does, yes. Poor Susato-san. She looks like her whole world has just fallen apart. About before. Yes? Yes? What's on your mind, Bruno? Do tell me. How did you know that I was a lawyer and we just arrived in London, I mean? Yes. Oh, and that we have a difficult trial tomorrow. How did you know all of that? Oh, that's what you mean. Please, tell us how you did it. Explain every detail. Of course, I'd be delighted. Although, there's really no mystery. Now, let's begin. Iris Wilson is proud to present her Logic and Reasoning Spectacular. Oh, cute. First of all, I knew already that you were a lawyer, Bruno. After all, I met you yesterday at the Old Bailey in the defendant's antechamber. But you also said that we'd only just arrived in London. How did you know that? I observed a passport and travel ticket protruding from your breast pocket. Oh. So I was reasonably confident that you must have only just arrived in the country. And on top of that, you accepted a case against that particular prosecutor, telling me you were unaware of London's court affairs. A Reaper of the Bailey. I walked right into that one, didn't I? And then I noticed a red ink stamp on the back of Susie's hand. You were given that when you visited the local prison to meet with the suspect, weren't you? Earlier today. Ah. They use those stamps to keep a close eye on comings and goings, you see. So basically what you're telling me is that Victorian-era London dungeons are nightclubs? Good to know. I didn't realise. And a red stamp is only used for people visiting foreign inmates. That's oddly specific. So that told me that even though you had only yesterday concluded the trial of Magnus McGilded, the two of you had already had cause to visit a foreign inmate at the local prison. However, neither of you was wearing a particularly sad expression on your face, so I concluded that the prisoner was unlikely to be a friend or a relative. That led me to believe that you must have accepted a new case. I see. But how could you have known that the trial is tomorrow? Well, having barely been home a few hours yesterday, Hurley solved yet another case. It obviously amused him. He told me that he'd caught a Japanese man who was bawling and trembling. A Japanese man? Well, clearly that must have been Mr. Natsume. Now, Runo has that fancy Japanese sword. And I think your outfit is called a kimono, isn't it, Susie? Well, anyway, it was clear to me that you both come from Japan yourselves. So I put two and two together and decided you must be defending the Japanese man Hurley caught. And there was only one conclusion those facts could lead me to. You both came here to ask Hurley about the case. Is she the one who's usually correcting him on all of his deductions? There's a note on the mantelpiece that says the man's trial will be tomorrow. Hurley is always stabbing his notes with a knife, you know. He is silly. And that's all there was to it, really. Thank you for listening. I'm Iris Wilson, and that was one of my great deductions. Well, that was adorable and scarily efficient. Well, was it a winner? Were my deductions correct? They were spot on.
That was amazing, Iris. Truly a great deduction.
You even managed to certain something of Mr. Sholmes's delivery.
Oh, well, I was just copying Hurley's style for that. This is really very good news.
You could tell us all about the case involving the Japanese man. You will, won't you, Iris? Please. So yesterday, Mr. Sholmes apprehended a Japanese man, you were saying?
Yes. Hurley had just arrived back in London after a sea voyage, but the police were waiting for him at the railway station to take him directly to the crime scene.
Ah, the great detective is a popular man, it seems.
Apparently a woman was stabbed on a quiet street somewhere in town. There were witnesses who had seen a short, shifty-looking stooped man running away from the scene.
A short, shifty-looking stooped man. Mr. Natsume, beyond any doubt. Suzeki-san said that he didn't see anyone else on the street at all, but it seems there were witnesses after all.
Hurley used his great detective powers to determine the man's address. It was a lodging room very nearby. He went directly there with the police, and what did they find? A short, shifty-looking stooped man shivering in fear.
Mr. Sholmes' great deduction certainly hit the mark that time.
Of course it did. He's a great detective.
Still, that means the incident occurred only 2 days ago. Surely tomorrow is too soon for the trial, isn't it?
Definitely. We have no time to investigate properly. Hurley says that London is rife with crime.
Oh.
Scotland Yard is doing its best, but they can't stay on top of it, apparently.
Oh dear, I hadn't realised the situation was so dire.
That's why they can't afford to spend too much time investigating cases and trying the criminals in court. Staff and money are both short. Crimes are usually pinned on the first suspicious person.
That's not disturbing at all.
That's terrible. I suppose it's the harsh reality of the workings of the world's greatest justice system.
I suppose it is, but in that case, I don't hold out much hope for Suzeki-san. Yeah, me neither. Thank you for answering so many of our questions, Iris. This has been very informative.
Oh, you're most welcome. I've had so much fun.
Do you happen to know where Mr. Sholmes is at the moment? As you guessed, we'd like to ask him some questions about this case as well.
Oh, well. I expect Hurley is still investigating the scene.
Of the case involving Mr. Natsume, you mean?
Yes, Mr. Natsume. Hurley said he was going to the man's lodgings. If you leave now, you'll probably catch him there.
Iris, do you know where those lodgings are?
Well, I imagine the police are still investigating the scene of the crime themselves, aren't they? Did you happen to come across a detective by the name of Gregson while you were there?
Yes, we know Inspector Gregson.
Ah, goody. In that case, give Gregsy this from me, would you? If you do that, I'm sure he'll tell you what you want to know.
What is this?
A 5-shilling piece and a postcard, it seems.
Okay. Are we bribing him?
It reads, "Tell the gentleman in black whatever he wants to know. I trust that won't be a problem."
Gosh, this will make the inspector help us, will it? Well, thank you, Iris. We'll give it a try.
Good luck, then. I'm going to return to writing my manuscript, The Speckled Band. I'll be making more special blends of tea, so come back again soon. We'd be delighted. Thank you so much, Iris.
Well, Mr. Naruhodo, it's back to the scene of the crime. So, somewhat dubious that they would exert any influence over the men of Scotland Yard at all. We headed back to the scene with Iris's curious note and one of the world's heaviest silver coins in hand. Ooh, a TBC, okay. I wasn't actually expecting one here, but I guess it's as good a time to end the episode as any, because we are running on quite a bit. So thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye.